guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring this cute little stamp set from Colorado Craft Company. It is called White Christmas, but we are not going to use it for Christmas because we are at the stage of the year in which I have all of these stamp sets that I purchased that I want to use, but Christmas has come and gone, and so now I have to find creative ways to still use them. So this is not a Christmas set any longer. This is just a gathering of friends out in the snow being absolutely adorable, and that's what we have here today. So I did not clean my stamp. Well, I did not clean it well. So when I go to stamp down my no line ink, there is a little bit of like leftover black that's down in like the bottom right hand corner. I'm fine with it. I'm not worried about it. We're going to be doing a combination of Zig Clean color markers and colored pencils today. I am working on Canson Monteval watercolor paper. And so I'm going to do my background first, and then I'm going to go in and do all of the coloring of all these little cutie patooties. So if you've never used Zig Clean color markers before or a product similar, they really love water. They are very friendly, and so they like to run a lot. I'm going to be working with a minimal amount of water today. So you can see I'm putting down just a little bit of pigment at the top, and then I'm going to use a 1-inch wide flat brush. And I'm going to start where I want it to be the lightest. That's where I'm going to start putting my color down. And then I'm going to take that up into the pigment. And I'm just going to go over these colors as many times as I need to get them to blend. Then I will drag it down towards my image. The nice thing about the Zig Clean color markers is you can do this as many times as you want. I did mine twice. But I am going to go in with just a clean paper towel and blot off my images. So that way they don't have like this blue cast to them. Also, I had either dog hair or bristles that shedded from my brush. Either way, something shedded into my watercolor, and that was just me taking it out. For the bottom part of the snow, I'm going to use that same blue and gray. I'm just going to add a little bit of purple to it to get more of a blue violet and just to change in the hue. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to start where I want it to be the lightest, and then I'm going to take it down and then work it back up. You can take these markers direct to paper while it is wet, but there just won't be as concentrated. As you can see here, the purple is a lot lighter and so is the blue. And then I'm going to go over it again just to make sure that everything is blended. Like I said, I'm working with minimal water, so this is not bubbled up. This is like absorbing right into the paper and just giving me a sheen. And then the top at this point is dry, and so I'm going to go in and do my second layer just to get my blue to come down a little farther and to be a little darker at the top. So after that, that's really the majority of the like water I'm going to be using. Zig Clean color markers will blend each other. So if you're like, I don't have good control with my water yet, you can actually blend a darker color with a lighter color and you don't need any water at all. I like to do a combination of the two, and I'll show you both techniques as I'm kind of going. But I wanted to wait until my background was dry. Again, I'm blotting up over my characters to make sure they aren't blue. And then once this is dry, which didn't take any time at all really, I'm going to go in and then start adding my shading. Before we get into all the ins and outs of the shading and stuff, I do want to mention I know that we just had the holidays, and all of you all probably got really awesome presents, and you have all of these new shiny things. I myself got a couple of new sketchbooks and the new Distress ink watercolor pencils, which I'm very excited to try. However, if you are a person whose family does not know what your crafty items are or what you would want, and you have to shop for yourself, which was me for a really long time, honestly, until I just started sending people links. There are a lot of sales, end of the year sales going on, and Colorado Craft Company is one of the companies that is having a sale, and it's a really super good one. I've already been in there. Before I even put my video up, I've already been in there. So what they are offering is a buy two, get one free. So you buy 2 stamps or 2 dies or a stamp and a die or 2 products, whatever. And then you get the third one of equal or lesser value free. But let me tell you what makes this particular sale like extra generous. They're also offering free shipping, which gives you the opportunity to make multiple purchases, which means you can go in and you can pick 3 stamp sets that are going to be like $20 or $15, and then you will be guaranteed to get one that's $20 off or $15 off. Whereas a lot of the sales that are buy two get one free, because they don't have free shipping, you have to put everything in the cart at the same time. So let's say you put, you know, 2 or 3 $20 products in there, a $15 product, a $10 product, and an $8 product. So you've got 6 things, so you're getting 2 for free. Well, it's going to be your $8 product and your $10 product that are going to be free. But because they're offering the free shipping, you can just put in all of like your 2 $20 purchases and your $15 purchase, and your $15 purchase will be free. And then you could put in a second one that's, you know, 2 $15 purchases and an $8 purchase, and then your $8 will be free. So like they're giving you the opportunity to kind of customize your orders so that you can get the most off, which is what I ended up doing. But you can only do that because the shipping is free and you're not having to pay for it on every single purchase. Like it's a genuine savings versus, well, yes, I saved $20, but I paid $9 in shipping. And so, you know, am I really saving the $20? You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Also, I will leave a link to my sales page because there are other sales that are going on. Spellbinder's having a really good one. Gina K is, Erin Lee Creative. There's a bunch. And if you are a person who's like, Kelly, I just got everything that I needed for Christmas, that's fine. Don't go. You will not hurt my feelings. But if you are a person who your family does not understand or your friends do not understand that this is your craft and this is what brings you joy, and they don't purchase you these items and you have to shop for yourself, there's good sales and you can get yourself some things. So yeah, that's that. So for this particular bunny, I'm going to jack him all up. I am just going to ruin his head. Just his head, not his body. Just the top portion of him. So I started with a grayish brown, and I was happy with the way that was looking. And then I decided to add in a little bit of a warmer brown. And oftentimes, if I'm working, because I told you if you try to take the marker to a wet area, it's more muted. So I will just scribble this on my like glass mat, which I also have a code for and a sale. But anyway, I just scribble it on there and I use it like a palette. So this particular medium, these Zig Clean color markers or markers that are similar, I think Arteza has some as well. You can use them multiple ways. And this is the way that I like to add my shading so that I can be particular about where it goes. But I'm about to ruin this whole bunny's life by giving him, I don't know, rosacea, eczema, whatever makes you very pink. That's what I'm going to give him. And his whole head's going to be pink here in a minute. It's just going to be pink, pink, pink everywhere. So fortunately, you can add water back into, like I can see it happening already. And I'm like, okay, let me tone it down with some gray. It's not working. It's not enough. Because the brown that I put on top of my gray base is warm. It's really making that pink kind of stand out. And I don't even know that the camera is picking it up as much as it really looked in real life. But anyway, what I was going to say is thankfully, the Zig Clean color markers are very forgiving because you can pick up the pigment even after it's dried because they do love the water so much. And the reason that I can do the bunny and then do his scarf is, again, because I'm working with that very minimal amount of water. You saw me show you at the beginning, very purposeful in showing you that after I dip my brush in the water, I blot the base of the bristles, which will give me enough moisture to move my pigment around, but it will not give me so much that my paper is completely saturated. I just want a very light sheen that dries very quickly. Now, with that said, there are some areas that I don't blot them, and that just comes with practice, like knowing how much water to pick up. But in the beginning, when I first was learning how to do watercolor, especially for smaller images where you really need to have that control over your water, I blotted every single time until I got good at knowing what I needed to pick up, and that just comes with practice. So if you're still blotting, don't worry about it. Don't feel like that's a deficit. Like, there are some people that I know that still blot and they watercolor a lot better than I do because that's just part of their process now. So either way, whatever works for you is totally fine. So for this little, I think it's supposed to be a package, but I kind of colored him to look like maybe a little blankie or something. I originally went in with a lighter purple and I didn't like it. I felt like I was kind of muddying up the waters. So I just went back to my original purple. Here's where I'm going to go in. I coated his whole head in clean water and then I just blotted it up. I also know, I'm going to try to go back in and fix it again. And just use the brown and maybe like eke out the pink, but it was still too pink for my liking. But I did know, especially with the no line coloring, it's very hard for me to just leave it as is and not go in with the pencil to get a little bit darker shading. You could do it all with the watercolors, and really by the time that this is done with just the zigs, there's nothing wrong with the image. Like, it's still very cute and very well colored. It just was not, like, I didn't have the shading or the texture that I wanted. And using colored pencils over watercolor paper is such an easy, simple, fast way to get texture in your coloring, because when you're using colored pencils, in order to get a smooth blend, you have to fill up the fibers of the paper. Watercolor has more tooth in it because it's designed for water to sit on top of it. So just even lightly shading over with a colored pencil will give you more texture in your animal's fur or more texture in clothes without really you having to do any of the work, which I always appreciate. So I do not remember where we left off as far as life goes, because as I told you in the last video, the strep got me. It took me out, and then by the time I recovered, the holidays were upon us. And so I was on the struggle bus to really get anything done. December's been a very light month here on the Kelly Taylor channel because it just kind of all came, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to, it just is what it is. So I told you guys I got sick. I think we covered all of that. So Eric's mom, we were supposed to do our Taylor side of the family Christmas on Friday. And Friday, I'm sure if you live anywhere in the East Coast, well, no, because even Texas got it. Like, this thing was just massive with the freezing cold temperatures. I'm in Ohio, so we got blasted with this winter storm and these sub-zero temperatures. And it was just like Thursday, it was 40 and raining, and Friday, it was like -20 wind chill and snow. Like, that's how Mother Nature rolls this time of year. I'm not really that big of a fan of her this time of year, but I've lived here my whole life, and you just gotta accept it that is what it is. So we were supposed to do it on Friday, and that wasn't going to happen. And so recently she had some health concerns where her white count was a little bit low. And so her doctor was concerned about her getting sick and, was telling her to make sure she stays at home. And if she had any symptoms of getting like any sort of illness, she needed to go to the ER, because then like she could possibly be septic and not even know it because she just had no immune system. And what it ended up being, thank God, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the first thing I think of when I hear somebody has no white blood cell count, I'm like, it's cancer. And we, have already unfortunately gone down that road, a few years ago, and she came out of it beautifully. But like, that was the first, it's scary. Let's just call it what it is. but it ended up actually being her medication. So thank Jesus. Like, oh my gosh, days and days and days of praying until she got her blood work done again to see if it came back up. And then each week she was going back and getting tested, and it was coming up every time. And now she's, back to what a normal, regular, everyday person is. Thank you, Lord. So Eric had strep, I had strep, and then Caitlin had something going on, but we didn't know what the something was. It didn't appear to be strep, but I don't know if you have ever tried to look into the throat of a 1-year-old child, but I imagine it's like what wrestling a cat is like, because she doesn't want you to look back there, and it's a very narrow area and you can't really see, and she can't tell you that she has a sore throat. So we weren't 100% positive. It seemed like she was more like cough and runny nose versus strep throat, but we weren't 100% positive, and we wanted to just cover our bases. So on, what day was that? I'm trying to remember. Thursday? No. Here, let's go back to the card for a second. So here, all I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of dimension to my snow in the foreground, and I'm adding my shading behind the lines. The reason I'm adding shading behind the lines is because snow is white, and so the lightest area should be at the top of those snow mounds, which is actually directly in front of the lines. So all the shadows go behind the lines, and then I'm just using a little bit of water to just blend them out into the background. We're going to add that like more of a bright white highlight later on to make it look more like snow on the little trees, and on the snow on the ground later on. So I'm not overly worried about it, but I did want it to have a little bit more depth by adding some shadows with my watercolors. You could also do this with colored pencils if that's, you were more comfortable with those. I am not. Let's just be realistic about it. Colored pencils is not my go-to medium, and I probably do more watercoloring than I do colored pencils. Speaking of colored pencils, let's move on to that portion. So one thing that you do want to note, especially when you're working with smaller images like these, is you want your pencils to be very sharp. You want that little teeny tiny tip so that you can get into all of the nooks and crannies on these smaller images. I don't like this head still, this little bunny head, so I'm going to go in with some clean water, let it sit for a second, and then blot it up again. You'll be able to see here like all the pigment that I pulled up. And I don't want to color over it while it's wet. So normally I work left to right because I am right-handed and I don't want to like smear my coloring. But this time I am going to work right to left just to give that little area time to dry. So, what do we have going on? So Thursday we had Peanut, but his cousins were in town on his dad's side of the family. And so they wanted to go to one of those like jump parks, those trampoline jump parks. So we didn't end up getting him back home until like Thursday evening. And then he was ours on Friday. So this is when we're supposed to be doing our Taylor family Christmas. We're all looking at the snow like, is this going to happen? Who knows? Nobody knows. So I called just out of an overabundance of caution. I was very nervous about Caitlin possibly having strep because it is very contagious. And obviously my mother-in-law just went through these things, and like, I don't want to be the person who gets her sick. I don't want to be the person who gets anybody sick, but especially someone who's immune compromised. No, thank you. I don't want that responsibility. Back to the card. So here, I'm not completely covering up my watercoloring. I'm just adding shading to the areas that I want it to be darker, and then I'm using just a little bit of a lighter color to kind of blend it out. I'm also, like I said, using this colored pencil to add texture to their fur. There is, you can do multiple layers of colored pencil to get a smooth result. You can use Gamasol. My friend Lydia uses, I think it's orange oil or orange zest oil. that you can also, smooth that out, but that is not my goal here. My goal here is not to have a smooth colored pencil result. It is to create texture in my little animals because they are furry animals. Um, and so I'm just going through and adding, just the shading and kind of blending that back out into the areas that have already been watercolored. You could completely use your watercolor as a underpainting and then completely cover it up. That's also an option if you're into that look. But that was not my goal. So, anyway, so we were just being an overabundance of caution. So when I had strep, I told you guys I went to the doctor, and then they were calling in my prescription. I was totally wiped out after I went to the doctor. So I came home and took a nap. And then when I went to go pick up Miss Caitlin, I was going to get my prescription. When I showed up to get my prescription, it had never been called in. So I had to call my doctor. Thankfully, she was the one who was on call, and she was able to call it in for me. And so I got it a little bit later. So I didn't want to wait with Caitlin because it's the same. Obviously, she has a pediatrician and I have a family practitioner, but it's the same hospital service. So I was like, I'm not waiting. I'm going to call first thing in the morning and see what I can see. So I call them first thing in the morning and I talk to them. Plus now I'm nervous about the amoxicillin. Even if they'll call her in an antibiotic without seeing her, she had that possibly an amoxicillin rash, and I'm real nervous about that too. So I call, they're obviously overrun and there's nothing to be done about that. I leave a message. I wait for them to call me back. Probably about an hour later, they do call me back. I give them the rundown of what is happening. We've all had strep. She has a runny nose. She has a cough. She has not had a fever. I don't necessarily know that it's the same thing, but I am just trying to get some guidance here on what I need to do because Christmas is coming and I don't want to get everybody sick. And if you're on antibiotics for 24 hours, then you're not contagious anymore. And I have 2 days before Christmas. So if I can get her on an antibiotic, if she does have strep, then I should be good to go. Back to the card. So here all I'm doing is I'm adding shadows into my snow. And again, I'm not being overly concerned about maintaining that highlight because I know that I'm going to go back in and put some bright white on there to really make it look like snow. So I give her the rundown. She was like, okay, let me see what the doctor says. Do you want me to send this to this doctor or that doctor? Blah, blah, blah. These are who's in today. And I was like, that doctor is her actual pediatrician, so that's fine. Back to the card. Here, what I'm doing with my black color pencil is I'm just going back in and putting in those details of their eyes and their whiskers so that those are maintained. Even though it's a no line coloring look, I still didn't want to lose the whiskers and their eyes because obviously that is what's going to make them look like what they are, bunnies and chipmunks and all that. For the white highlight, I'm going to use my gel pen. You could totally do just a line of white gel pen. I'm doing little dots over top of each other. And again, this is just going to create more texture because I have a pretty simple card here. You know what I mean? I've just stamped an image and colored it. So in order to make it more interesting, I try to do other techniques to kind of just use the little details, bring it up a notch. I did choose to trim it down a little bit. I just trimmed it down, I think, by 1/4 of an inch on each side. And then I'm doing the same thing with the snow on the bottom that I just did with the branches. So I call them, I give them the rundown, and the sentiment, because this is a Christmas set, it has a lot of Christmas sentiments, and I didn't want it to be a Christmas card. So I just picked a sentiment from another set. It says, friendship makes life more beautiful. And I thought that was fitting because you have all these little friends here together playing in the snow. So she calls me back. She was like, hey, this is what he said. You can give her Dimetapp for the cough and congestion, which I tell him every time, nobody makes Dimetapp anymore, bro. You can't find it. And then if in order to do a strep test, you will have to bring her in the middle of this blizzard. So I'm like, okay. So I talked to Eric. We make the decision because the doctor's office is actually only 15 minutes from our house. We're like, all right, even though it's crazy snowing out of an overabundance of caution for getting his mom sick, we're going to take her in and have her tested. Now, more adventures await us from there, but I'm going to leave you with that portion of the story, is that we are getting ready to take her to be tested for strep. And then I'll get you with the next part of the story, which is very entertaining in and of itself, in the next video. So you saw me put my snow down. If you want it to look like it's snowing in your card scenes, you have to put your snow over your images as well as in the background, which is what I did. You don't have to be crazy, just a couple of dots of snow will get the point across. I accented my sentiment with some similar colored gems. These are aquamarine gems from Spellbinders. They matched my blue pretty well. And while I want to accent my sentiment, I don't want to take away from it. I also added a little bit of shimmer to my snow and then to the accessories my little characters have. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. I hope that you were inspired by a little bit of something. Like I said, I will link those sales below if you are a person who would like to check them out. And otherwise, I appreciate your time and hanging out with me, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.